Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are on to the finale of Season 3, Talitha Cumi. And Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about the legacy of this episode?
Well, why don't you try and guess at what the legacy of this episode is? We've got 217 episodes. Where do you think this ranks on IMDb's ranking of all 217 episodes?
Okay, 87?
87, eh? Okay. I can tell you are completely wrong. It is at number 27.
It's 27. Okay,
27, cool. Yes. It is in the top fifth of
wow.
of episodes. Yeah. So
Wow.
It's one I've always liked but had certain issues with. But the fact that it is a season closer, it means that maybe I have more issues with it than I should. Because obviously when you're on your season finale, that's when you got to bring out the big guns. That's when you got to bring your A game. So yeah, as far as X-Files fandom goes, if IMDb is a decent reflection of X-Files fandom, then the legacy is pretty high. Now there are quite a few things in this that happen that will have ramifications throughout the rest of the show, as is always the case with a season finale. But as is always the case, our judgment of it will be down to the execution.
Yes. Do you find that with episodes that have threads that begin that carry on into the other seasons, that more weight is put on an episode by the fans than possibly it should be? They overrate it?
Yes and no. So I think in the early stages of the mythology, yes. I think once you're hitting season 7 onwards, I think even the fans start to lose a bit of respect for the mythology episodes, and that's when the good standalone episodes kind of become the ones that people want to talk about, and the mythology stuff kind of becomes a bit of a sore point for fans.
Right, okay. We shall get there soon enough.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
So Talitha Cumi. Let's get into it. So opening scene, we've got a guy in a diner who is like clearly a very disgruntled employee of wherever it is he works.
Well, we've seen this kind of character in many episodes before. That ramped up craziness.
Yes,
Zero subtlety.
Yeah. So he pulls a gun and just starts shooting. And this is something obviously that touches on stuff that had happened at the time. Just random shootings in the US weren't unheard of back then. In fact, they were pretty prevalent. I remember seeing a lot of stories like this in the news, but without the resurrection of the dead and stuff. So this dude just starts shooting, and then he gets shot himself. So someone in there pulls a gun, shoots him down, and then the dude from the Invaders pops up. Rythinus, is it? I believe his name is. Rythinus. So basically, this is the guy who played the lead character in the TV show The Invaders, which I always remember watching after school back on reruns. Yeah, loved it. It was great.
Where the aliens turned red after they were shot and disappeared.
Yeah, and disappeared. Yeah, conveniently disappeared, so there's no evidence. Still a good show. Still a cracking show. Lasted for 2 seasons, I believe. But so he turns up. He just starts trying to talk this guy down before he ends up shooting, and some Billy wants to be a hero pulls his gun and ends up making this guy shoot the place all up. But this dude, Rythinus, the Invaders dude, he heals him. He puts his palm of his hand onto his chest, and we see the blood kind of go back into him and the wound heal up. And that's the intro. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a really kind of strong intro. I think you've got. It starts off typically with the crazy guy in the diner, but the addition of the man who comes up and is super calm, unwavering in front of the gun, and then starts to wave his powers. It kind of leads you on. I mean, initially I was like, "Where's the episode going to go?" But I was definitely hooked straight away. But this is one of those episodes where at this scene, I started getting flashbacks to the episode that we're about to watch. It was one that was in my memory. You know how some of them have faded over time, but this one I definitely remembered.
Right. Okay. So something that strikes me about this opening scene is just how bright it is, which I'm not used to. Like when you have an opener on an X-Files episode, it's usually shot in darkness. It's usually set at night. I can't think of many X-Files episodes, any off the top of my head, that open up on a daytime scene in a random, in a public filled location. There's nothing scary about a diner except maybe the food. Depending where you are. So yeah, that gives the episode a different flavour, I would say, right off the bat. So we get past the opening credits, and Mulder and Scully arrive. Scully hears a testimony of what had happened, while Mulder just lets himself into the back of the police car and decides to interview the shooter, who says that God spared his life. Out
of everything that goes on here, the one thing that struck me is how pissed off the paramedics were that nobody was hurt. That guy is literally raging.
It's like, I wanted bodies, man. I wanted bodies. I get a call. I expect bodies, damn it. I got nothing to do today.
He's so angry. I like the way that they dissect the crime scene. You know, Scully goes in to check out, and Mulder starts going around the outskirts of the crime scene. You know, she's investigating, talking to the officers. He talks to the assailant, and they're both getting similar kind of stories. But I like that they don't need to hold hands and go around the crime scene together. It's just a nice little touch.
Yeah, absolutely. So the healer disappeared is what we learn, basically. So based on the testimonies of everybody, and the unique thing about this compared to other episodes is that there's so many witnesses. Like this isn't one again. Like I say, normally we open on a dark lit scene. Something happens to one person. Usually that one person gets murdered. Often there aren't even any witnesses, or if there is a witness, it's usually one crazy sounding dude that Scully could easily write off. Whereas here, we've got a whole diner full of people. We've even got professionals, paramedics, police officers, all who are corroborating this narrative that seems to be playing out. So that's something we don't often get in the show. So we cut then to Mrs. Mulder. Mrs. Mulder meeting none other than her best bud, Cancer Man. Okay, so the ego of Cancer Man is absolutely insufferable in this scene, I've got to say. And the two are being photographed as they argue, as Cancer Man asks her to remember something. So he's trying to get her to remember a particular something, as is typical with X-Files. He's quite elusive. He never just comes out and says, hey, you know that thing we used to kill alien bounty hunters? I need that thing. It's like a spiky thing. You hit a button, the thing shoots at. No, he talks in language that's like, we're supposed to understand that she understands, but we're left kind of guessing what it is that they're actually talking about. But as I say, for me, the thing that sticks out most in this scene is the insufferable nature of Cancer Man and just how egotistical he appears in this scene.
It's the almost alluding to some sort of relationship, isn't it? Like that kind of just not even like, oh, do you remember the old times? It's almost like rubbing her face in it, you know. Remember that time I had you?
Pretty
so,
much.
Like,
but it's like they talk about a particular game they played, and he says he was better than Bill, and then he says, but that could be said of so many things, and it's just like, oh man, when he drops that line, I'm just like, what an insufferable douchebag, just ego all the way. So obviously we don't know who was taking the photos at this point, but we go back to the Mulder and Scully situation, and a copper says that the healer disappeared right in front of him, and then Skinner calls Mulder to tell him that his mum is in the hospital.
Yeah, and it's all things are going to go there now. So you're kind of wondering what's happened to Mrs. Mulder. Did Cancer Man get what he was after?
Yeah. I mean, we're told pretty much straight away she's had a stroke. So obviously Mulder doesn't know why. We do. On the surface, it's just like Scully says. You know, they're pretty common, and like she does reassure him by saying that, you know, like most of these situations people do pull through now. It's not like
but we get all the information by the aid of exposition nurse, who just pops her head in to unload all this info and then disappear again, which I love.
Basil exposition. We gotta love Basil exposition. So she's had a stroke. Scully says people recover from them all the time, and then Mrs. Mulder wakes up and she writes "palm" on a note, and Mulder thinks there's a correlation, and then Scully's reaction to that, which is absolute classic, and then Mulder's like, "What, you think I'm stretching? Do you think?" so because the healer guy supposedly healed people with the palm of his hand, and then Mulder's mum writes "palm," he's like, correlation. It's like, which tells you everything you need to know about Mulder, which is that he sees things everywhere. He'll make a connection between anything, as long as it kind of gets him going on a new train of thought. It
makes you wonder, because like we get 24 episodes of the X-Files where he's pretty much on the ball, or he's close to it most of the time, but we don't get to see all the times he's wrong.
I'd like to see that, actually. I'd like to see an episode, like a flashback episode, where we see all the ridiculous kind of notions Mulder came up with.
That'd be funny,
and was wrong, Like, when am I ever wrong, Scully? When am I ever wrong? Cue flashbacks.
Cue Darren Morgan's script.
Yeah. Big time. That'd be awesome. Okay, so do you think it's a leap? Hell yeah. I think it's a leap, Mulder. So they go back to Washington, D.C. to check security footage of the aftermath of the shooting, and they find the healer changing right in front of their eyes, conveniently just as a body goes past the camera. So he's there, being questioned, a body goes past the camera, and as the body kind of disappears out of camera view, there's somebody else stood there with the same suit on.
Yeah, nobody says, look, oh, he's disappeared, but there's somebody standing there in his place with the exact same clothes. They're just like, he's vanished.
Yeah, like that's got to be something that that at least Mulder would pick up on, I believe.
Yes.
You know, like that. He's a really observant guy. He tends to pick out details like that. So I'm going to assume the fact that his mum's in hospital right now is messing with his abilities. But Mulder goes off to the house, his mum's house, to basically just see the scene of where she had her stroke. And then men raid an office and grab the healer. So we see the healer, Roy Thinnis, sat there in this office doing work, and these guys kind of all walk in. They grab him, and Cancer Man is with them. And they lock him in a cell like Hannibal Lecter. literally got him in this contraption with a mask on and all that. He just proper looks like Hannibal Lecter. So,
but he seems like the most unthreatening man imaginable. You know, really placid. The guy's like healed people, so there's something weird going on. But then he's went back to work.
Yeah, just another day at the office.
Yep.
So Mulder arrives at the house, and X shows up and tells him what happened. He also says that he was the one who called the ambulance, so thank you to X. He says that Cancer Man wanted something from the house. So, yeah. X, given last episode...
Yes.
Should a single thing this guy says be trusted?
It's like if someone is coming to you and is actively wanting thanked for saving your mum's life, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. Okay. So the thing is, for all we know, Cancer Man could have left, and then X could have got out and said, the thing he was after, I want it, give it to me now, and then that could have caused a stroke. So we don't know, do we?
No, we do not.
But so Jeremiah Smith, we are now given a name for the healer. Jeremiah Smith, supposedly the same man who was just caught and made into Hannibal Lecter, walks into the FBI to clear things up. Says he doesn't remember anything, so he's got like Scully and Skinner and a few others all kind of interviewing him. He's just proper chilled. He's like Johnny Depp in the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, just proper chilled, just giving information, answering calmly, just there's they can't really arrest him for anything. He's cooperating. He says, "Look, I was there, then I left. I don't know what to tell you. I don't remember anything that these people are saying." So Mulder, after some, investigative work, that is, he takes out the piece of paper that his mum wrote Palm on, and then in a really ridiculous, somehow
with an almost Mensa test.
Works. It just, I get that that's there for our benefit. But do we really need to see him going oh, it spells lamp, and it's just like, yeah, great. It's like it's the shortest word possible.
Yes.
Okay, so like we couldn't have just like had him looking at it and then just maybe looking to the side, lamp. And
trying to write, you can't see, and turns the lamp on.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. So he turns Palm into lamp and finds the weapon by basically taking out a bunch of lamps. So he finds the weapon that kills the alien bounty hunter. So this is the weapon that we saw in the season 2-part episode, Colony and Endgame, one of the best mythology 2-parters. So, and it's at that point where Cancer Man is interrogating Jeremiah, who tells him that this is a pretty dense, it's just a dialogue scene. It's just Cancer Man talking with Jeremiah. It's very heavy on dialogue. It's pretty dense. They're clearly talking about the grand scheme that Cancer Man is involved with, and the selfish nature of Cancer Man in regards to that. So Cancer Man interrogates Jeremiah, who tells him he no longer believes in the greater purpose. Cancer Man claims to give them, which I assume to mean people, just the people that the government kind of watches over. He claims to give them happiness in exchange for authority. Says Jeremiah had no right to give them hope. Jeremiah turns into Deep Throat and asks him how many must die to preserve his stake in the project. Cancerman says he's not impressed by his trickery, and those who possess the tools of his destruction are on the way for him. It's a strange scene in many ways, because again, I don't know if this is just ego again, because we see a lot with regards to Cancerman's ego in this episode, but really there's no reason for him to be in there.
I would say in this scene particularly, he looks visibly shaken.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The man rattles him, the face changing and bringing back past mistakes possibly, or errors visually was a nice touch. I think the return of Deep Throat just makes you realise how much you miss that character. Definitely, because it's been a long way going, but it starts to allude to the bigger picture again. The colonisation theme that's beginning to come into it.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a bookend as well with this episode, because in the first episode of this season, we got the ghosts of Deep Throat and Bill Mulder, and then in the last episode of the season, we essentially get the same. So I do like that touch. I like that, first episode and last episode of the season, we get the ghosts of Deep Throat and Bill Mulder in various manifestations. But yeah, I do like this discussion of essentially what Jeremiah is saying is that, look, you're playing God, you've got no right to do so. And everything with you is ego and selfishness, and it's all, you're putting the rest of humanity on the chopping board for the sake of your own, whatever it is the plan is leading to. And then you've got, like I say, for me, the only reason for Cancerman going into that room and speaking with him is ego, which is that he's obviously, Jeremiah is part of that alien race, which has something to do with colonization. And this is probably one of the few instances in which he finds himself top dog over one of these guys. And it's only because this alien, for lack of a better word, bounty hunter, he's not a bounty hunter, but we've seen his kind as bounty hunters previously. It's the only instance where he would have authority over him, which is because he's broken away from the plan. He no longer believes in the cause, and that gives Cancerman the right to have authority over it. And I think he's using that. He's getting off on that in a way.
100%,
But Jeremiah kind of in both instances in this episode where we see him come and speak to him, Jeremiah kind of flips that on his head and unsettles him, as you say. So Mulder goes into Skinner's office, all guns blazing, demanding to know where Cancerman is. Skinner says he doesn't know. Mulder says Cancerman is after the healer guy, but Scully tells him how the healer guy actually turned himself in and that he works at the Social Security office. Mulder has a habit of going off on Skinner sometimes. I feel like Skinner takes far too much crap from him on a regular basis.
Definitely. I wasn't a big fan of this scene. I feel as if Mulder, I know he's got a lot of pressure going on in his life, but I just felt it was a bit crazy.
OTT, yeah. Even given his situation, and given the fact that by this point, they've been through so much with Skinner by now. These outbursts, they feel a bit more season 2, beginning of season 3. Yeah. Whereas at this point, I feel like he should be going into the office and being like, "Dude, come on, you got to tell us where this guy is. If you know, you need to tell me where he is." But he goes in like, "Where is he?" It's just like, okay. So they go to the Social Security office to pick up Jeremiah Smith, who decides to do a runner with his disappearing act. He kind of jumps into a crowd of people, and then when they pull them all up off the floor, he's nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
Cancer Man goes to gloat over Jeremiah once again, who says that Cancer Man is living in fear that they, again, them and they, will believe that he is God. Cancer Man says they don't believe in God. To which Jeremiah's response is, do you think that when people cease to believe in miracles, they stop believing in God? Which is like a... It's a very vague conversation. I'm not entirely sure what they're alluding to. I think that there's certainly an alluding there to the fact that governments have placed themselves into the position of God. There's a really nice quote from Cancer Man. I can't remember if it's in this one or in the previous sequence they had, where Cancer Man says, it's totally gone. It's gone out of my head. But he's basically saying that we give them happiness. Oh, well, I quoted it, didn't I? He says, we give them happiness, they give us authority. And it is this idea that a government basically appeases the people in order to get their authority. And which is something that feels very relevant.
100%. Yeah.
Big time today. And we almost, I feel like we almost put government in the position of God. It's like, it's almost like people have ceased to believe in God, so they have to put their faith in something, and they've given it to governments. That feels like kind of what this little conversation is all about, really. So Jeremiah transforms into... Oh, mind, it was right there. I was looking for the quote. It's right there. So Cancer Man says, anyone who can appease a man's conscience can take away their freedom. So that was the quote that I really liked. But what it basically boils down to is that he's put himself in the position of God. So if that isn't egotistical, I don't know what is. So Jeremiah transforms into Mulder's dad. As he says, anyone you can't appease, you simply kill, alluding to the fact that that's clearly what they did with Mulder's dad, because Mulder's dad was about to spill the beans to his son, and that's when Krychek showed up and popped a cap in his ass. Okay, so that's what this season closer's missing. Actually, it's missing Krychek.
Yeah,
big time.
Yeah.
So it says, anyone you can't appease, you simply kill, before telling him that he has lung cancer.
Yes.
Which I love.
It's awesome. It's
a great moment.
The reaction. It's the reaction to it. Where he's like, it's disbelief, but with acceptance. It's like a really hard thing to convey.
You're lying. It's a great performance there from Bill Davis. As you say, he's got to get two different emotions going on there, and he nails that reaction. Absolutely nails it. But it's like, because Jeremiah could be lying. This could be a ploy. It could be a last desperate card. But Cancer Man also knows that, given how much he smokes, given his age, it's just to play it safe. I would say, look, I'd let you go anyway as long as you just heal anything I've got going on right now, because because it'll give me a fair few years. So but it's a master stroke from Jeremiah. So he tells him he's got lung cancer, and then just after that, the alien bounty hunter, possibly the same one from Colin and Endgame, possibly not, because these dudes could all look the same. Alien bounty hunter arrives, but Jeremiah has escaped.
Yeah. Which is nice, because it kind of it gives an insight into Smoking Man, because he's all for the cause. He's all for making sure that he toes the company line and does what is deemed necessary, but he's not above saving himself.
Oh, he's all about saving himself. He's only invested in the cause to save himself. This dude has got one person in mind and one person only, and that is me, myself, and I. I think Jeremiah knows that, and he zones in on it. He zones in on his ego, and he knows exactly how to get to him. So, a doctor tells Mulder that his mum may not regain consciousness, which is a bit of a shame given what Scully told him earlier. so he has a little cry. But after that, he comes out and he has a run-in with Cancer Man, who's just brazenly standing outside, kind of talking to the nurses and stuff. And so he runs at Cancer Man, has a few words, knocks the cigarette out of his mouth, which is a nice touch. And Cancer Man says that he went to see her. Says that hang on. So he has a run with Cancer Man, who tells him that it was her who asked to see him, to see if he knew anything about Samantha, which I just wrote here in my notes. Well played, you sly son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Because it's like the Samantha.
It's a button to push.
Oh, big time. Yeah, and he's basically just done what Jeremiah did to him. He knows the exact button to push with Mulder, which is that anytime I want you, anytime I want to rein in the leash, I just bring up Samantha. If you want to know what happened to Samantha, you got to come through me. And that means you can't pull that trigger. You need to get the gun out of my face, because I'm your only way of finding out what happened to her.
Yeah, 100%.
So the possibility that he might give him a hold over Mulder. What's that? Okay. So Scully finds a shed load of Jeremiah Smiths. She's doing a bit of work on the computer, looking into various companies, various branches of the Social Security Office, and she basically finds a Jeremiah Smith at each one of them. Why they couldn't have come up with a different identity? These buggers can shapeshift. Why not come up with a different?
Not even like Jerry Smith. John Smith.
Jerry Goldsmith. It's just like, no, every one of them, they're all called the same name. They all look the same. It's like, seriously, that was your best plan? Like, these dudes shapeshift. You want to put a plant in each of the Social Security offices? Fine, do that. But have them all be different. And not all called Jeremiah Smith. And how is it that this is the first time anyone's put this together? How is it that somebody at the Social Security office hasn't gone, hey, Bob, look at this. I'm looking at payroll here. We've got a Jeremiah Smith at this branch, Jeremiah Smith at this branch, Jeremiah Smith at... Bring up the files. Bloody hell, they all look the same. It's like, come on. It's like, it's a bit of a push. A bit of a stretch. It's got to be bonkers said.
Parking lot. Parking lot scene now.
Oh, is this the parking lot? Okay, so so Mulder fights X for the weapon. So basically, X shows up in the parking lot. He's like, "Do you have it? Did you find it?" Mulder's like, "Maybe. I'm going to keep hold of it though." He's like, X is like, "You give it us, the value of that thing's going to increase." Oh, way to convince him, X. It's like, you just told him the thing that he's got and wants to keep is going to be worth more in a few years' time. Okay, so he doesn't try and convince him that it's worthless to him and that it'd be better in X's hands. So, but yeah, basically X takes a shot at Mulder and the two of them fight. Now, I don't know if it's just the TV I'm watching things on at the moment, because I got to admit the latest episode of Moon Knight I found extremely dark as I was watching it. But I watched this episode on the same TV. I couldn't see a bloody thing that was going on in this fight scene.
No, it's quite visible.
Right. Okay. I don't recall it being that dark, so I do think I've got some issues going on right now with my TV. But what I do remember, not that I saw it this time around because of the darkness, but what I do remember back in the day, most of all about this fight scene, is noticing very clearly the stunt doubles that were involved.
I can't say I noticed that.
You didn't notice that, right? It's just. It was really off-putting, and I didn't think it was a particularly well-shot fight sequence either. I don't think it was that well staged. I think when you go back to like the fight scene between Mulder and Krycek in Anasazi, that felt really visceral, very brutal, very kind of like just off the cuff, two men proper going at it. This one felt very stagey. It felt more like a movie fight. It's like,
yeah, I still
blocking
feel as if Mulder was out of his element. It didn't seem to, although he was almost going toe to toe, he seemed as if he was almost panic fighting, whereas X was more deliberate with his movements.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I feel like we've had much better fight scenes in the show, and it's quite disappointing because like X is a pretty big character, so to finally have the two of them after so long getting into a dust up. It was a bit of a disappointing fight scene, to be honest. I thought it was mostly down to the way it was shot, and you could clearly see the stunt doubles, but whatever. So basically, X does tell him before they go toe to toe that the weapon that Mulder now holds in his hand is the only thing that can kill the alien bounty hunters. So its value obviously will soar once colonization comes. So Scully gets a knock on her door from Jeremiah Smith. He says that they've never met, despite the fact that Scully thinks they have. Then Mulder calls, tells her to meet her. So her and Jeremiah Smith rock up at this plant somewhere, some kind of mill. And as they get out and start trying to talk to each other and figure each other out, and Jeremiah Smith's like, I've got information. I want to tell you everything. You know, when somebody rocks up to say they want to tell Mulder everything, that's when the alien... basically, Brian Thompson shows up. Brian Thompson raises his head once more and wields one of those weapons, so you know he means business with Jeremiah Smith. He's there to kill Jeremiah Smith, and we cut to black with a "To Be Continued" logo hitting the screen. So
and it's a good point to cut because you want to see what happens next.
Yeah.
I can't remember, so I was like the TBC felt like a FFS. I was just like, damn it. But good final sequence. It ends kind of strong, so I like it. Should we just go into wrap-ups for this, Brian?
Yep, go for it.
Yeah, I liked the majority of this episode. Everything Jeremiah Smith was pretty great. I'd say everything with Mrs. Mulder and with some of the emotional outbursts that Mulder has is a little bit showy. A little bit, I want to show some of my acting chops because it is a story by Duchovny and Carter, this one. So obviously he's going to give himself some emotional scenes to put in his show reel, which we don't necessarily need. I love Exposition Nurse. Just cause, it's one of those little quirky things. I like the return of the alien bounty hunter. I like the sort of grandiose mythology because this leads into the colonization, which becomes, if I remember correctly, part of the movie. Is that right? Yeah. So it's kind of leading towards that. It's a fun throwaway almost episode. It feels like it's fun to watch, but I wouldn't rush back to watch it again. But I can't really have too much complaints. There's as much in it as I like as I dislike, but the dislikes don't ruin the episode for me, if you know what I mean. The breakdown of the relationship with X is nice. it's probably taken it to a level where it's become so frustrating that both of the guys have kind of broken down naturally. I like that. I can understand them coming apart. I feel like Mulder and Scully are a little bit too much apart on this episode. You know, they're not wholly in it. And that given, I'd still give it like 4 out of 5.
I too would give it a 4 out of 5. I think, again, because it's a season closer, I want more from it, to be honest. I think, like, you compare this to Erlenmeyer Flask or Anasazi, then it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's not even close to those two as a season finale. I just think it's a bit clunky in places. There's some great stuff in there, like the conversations between Cancerman and Jeremiah. I think the most interesting thing about this episode is Cancerman, because he's actually in this a lot more than any episode before this that I can think of.
I mean, the last couple of times we've seen him, it's literally been like 5 seconds. So
behind the mirror, just like, oh, there he is. There,
and
like,
a car laughing.
Yeah. So, he gets a lot. He gets so much to do in this that it kind of feels a bit weird. Like seeing him being so boastful about how he was so much better than Bill Mulder at so many things. It feels a bit, this is a bit too much information, to be honest. Thank you very much. But it does really flesh out his character a lot more than we've ever seen prior to this. But the thing that really pops is the ego, just how egotistical this guy is. So yeah, I love those scenes between him and Jeremiah. Although, as I say once again, beyond ego, there isn't much of a reason for him to go into that cell. It's just like he's poking the dragon because he can. But it's solid. It's solid. There's a few things in it that I think could have been shot better, but no, it's solid. I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
Good. So we've come to the end of season 3. Next week will be our wrap-up episode where we talk about the season as a whole, as we list our top 5 episodes and the always fun bottom 5 episodes. I think we've been pretty close this season, Brian, so I don't see much of a difference coming, I don't think, although I'm waiting to be surprised. And that's going to be fun. You looking forward to it?
I am. I always look forward to our wrap-up shows. I mean, I know it's only our 3rd one, but yeah, 3rd. So I look forward to them because we spend so long kind of recording these that by the time we get to them, I always wonder what weird-ass things you're going to come up with because obviously I keep track of our scores and what we've given, and I remember what you've said about episodes, and I think you often forget, and then you're like, you end up putting some random-ass episode at the top and then some other one right at the bottom. Like in season 1 when Deep Throat was in your bottom 5, I was just like... My mind was just blown on that one. So yeah, it should be fun. I look forward to it.
It will be fun. So as always, to the listeners, to the watchers out there, thank you for joining us as we journey through the X-Files Revisited, and we will see you next week for the wrap-up. Thank you very much and have a good time. Bye.
Bye.